I'm not a business analyst or anything, but what I do know is that a bunch of people who normally would not be interested in the stock market seem to be interested in GameStop and AMC and companies that you think are failing, but I guess they're popular now. Either way, I wanted to do stock charts, like price charts that go up and down procedurally in Blender, because you know what, it's topical. So here is a method that I discovered to do that. Now, by the way, this is the second time I'm recording this tutorial, because the first time I recorded it, I actually found a better method since then. So you're welcome. I'm not giving you expired information. Anyways, I'm using Blender 2.92 Alpha. You can use Sigma, Epsilon, Beta. I don't give a fuck, okay? Add in a plane. I'm going to take the top two vertices and delete only the vertices so that we are left with two vertices and an edge, right? So this is just kind of like a roundabout way to make only an edge, and I'm doing this intentionally with meshes and not curves, by the way. But either way, isolate an edge. This is what we're going to use to make our stock thing, right? We just want to add a bunch of noise to it, and to add in that noise, we need geometry. So edit mode, vertex mode. You can right click, subdivide, and you can see it adds in an extra vertex. Do it a couple more times, and yeah, in fact, you can subdivide an edge. So what they don't want to tell you, they want to keep you dumb and feed you misinformation, but apparently this is a thing you can do. Once you have a bunch of geometry, now we can do our displacement, and again, the whole idea behind this is I want it to be procedural, yet we can still control trends and stuff like that, so we still have a bit of control over it. So what I discovered is you want to start off with a displace modifier. We're going to drive this with the texture. Which texture? Something noisy, like clouds. And by the way, if you're getting this kind of like crossing over on itself, we only want it to go up and down to displacement. So set it to Y. So yeah, this whole displacement is driven by this texture. We can add in depth, which is, almost synonymous with detail in this case if we add in a bit more geometry. Depth is going to be like how sharp or how many additional ridges is this shit going to have, right? Size is going to be kind of like, are we looking at a day-long trend or a month-long trend, right? So something like this is more like day trading, margin shit. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's high fluctuation, whereas a big scale kind of smooths stuff out, okay? So already we have control over that. We can control the strength of this, like is it going to flatline or how much noise should it have, etc. Okay, so that's the general starting piece, although there are a couple of problems. First of all, we don't really have control over the trending, right? It goes up, it goes down, it looks random, but overall, it kind of gravitates towards the x-axis with a maximum fluctuation of like this amplitude of 1, right? So it doesn't have any variation, like it doesn't end higher than, it began or anything like that. And second of all, if we were to render this, right, we're not going to see anything because it's just an edge. We don't have any depth or geometry or information, three-dimensional geometry. So first of all, let's fix this trend stuff. So edit mode, you're going to see it flatline, so just enable this so we can actually see what we're doing. If you enable proportional editing and then move some of these vertices, right, which are then going to have this modifier applied, you can see this is a nice procedural way of controlling overall trends. So maybe, you bought GameStop at the peak. You thought, oh yes, a company that should be valued at $10, $400 stock, let me buy that. You bought here, went down, that's the graph you'd see. Or maybe you bought like Tesla on the way up, something like that. We have control over all of this, and then it applies the displacement, okay? Next, how do we give this thing geometry, thickness, whatever? The first method I came up with, we don't need to go into it. I basically baked it into a curve and a bunch of stuff, which means we no longer have the proceduralism because I don't want to bake anything. I want to keep it all in modifiers. So how are we going to do it? Well, probably first thing you're thinking of is Wireframe Modifier, and you're going to notice it's not going to work, right? We need faces for it. And then you're thinking, okay, maybe solidify, because it solidifies, but not really, just adds in more vertices. You can't fill it in. So it doesn't really seem like there's an easy way to do this, but it turns out I read this on some forum. It wasn't like Blender artist. It was it was a Stack Overflow or something. Either way, they said skin modifier is the way to go. So add in a skin modifier, which looks like garbage, but the way this works is I'm just going to flatline it. It just kind of gives it thickness. It's meant for armatures and stuff like this, but it's still going to work for what we want. So to make this look less intense, go to edit mode, select all of these, and then I think it's Control A to scale this down. So just keep doing Control A and scaling further and further down until it gets thinner. And then at a certain point, we shouldn't even get intersecting geometry anymore. There we go. So again, Control A. That's some kind of scaling for armatures or something. I don't know what it really represents. but I'm just going to double it, something like that. And I think it's important that we go in this order. If we go in the other order, it might give us, yeah, if we go in the other order, first it skins it and then it displaces it. So areas with high slopes are going to be thinner than, graduate. It's all derivative stuff. But either way, make sure we're in this order. So we displace it, we skin it, and now if we render it, you can actually see it's 3D geometry. I mean, we're looking at it from a weird angle since the camera is off somewhere there. But if we were to do top-down view, it looks good. Okay, so right now we have control over, again, general trends. If we were to go to edit mode and move this in proportional editing, we have control over the type of displacement and how much that's going to be, stuff like that. And then we also have skinning to give this thickness. How do we render it? Well, I'm going to do this in Eevee. And for shading, I'm just going to do an emissive material, right? It's either going to be red or green is probably customary, okay? Background, make it black, and then this object, so we can actually see it, I'm going to give it a emission material, which is going to be visible, but we expect it to glow, especially if we make this emission stronger. To do this, at least in Eevee, you do bloom. If you wanted to do this in cycles, you have to do post-processing or something, but bloom is the way to go. So you either increase this or you make it thicker, right? That's how astronomers find how far away stars are. It's like a difference between radiance and luminosity or something. Either way, do this, pick a color. It can be green, it can be red. You can actually do texture coordinates to mix them in between. So I'm going to do something like that. And I want this to actually not look as insane. So let me just bring down some of this proportional editing stuff. Still, I want there to be a general trend, but nothing crazy. So now we have this general setup. And by the way, I didn't mention this, but it should be obvious. If we go to this Displacement modifier, which is kind of driving all this stuff, if we want a different seed value, or in other words, same trend, same general thing, but just, it should look a bit different, make this object coordinate driven, and for the object, just add in an empty or something like that. So now when we go back to this and do the object, make it the empty, now the position of the empty, you can't really see it. So let me go to solid mode. I'm moving this empty. This is basically going to determine the texture space. But in our case, it's just going to look like a seed. So now we have very cool animations you can make that are, I don't know if they're loopable, but they're definitely seamless for sure. I mean, it's loopable if you just do rotation and stuff like that because it rolls back on itself. But other things, if you wanted to kind of swipe from left to right, you could do that. You could parameterize it by arc length. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it the dummy way. So it's just going to swipe from left to right. But if you want to do that, you go to, I guess maybe position coordinates would be better. Geometry, position coordinates, it's going to give X, Y, Z values of every point on this mesh, right? That is, again, procedurally driven, but it still works, right? We take this, we separate by X, Y, Z. We look at the X-axis since it goes from left to right. Do something like a math greater than. So in other words, we're saying where is it greater than something, although maybe it should be less than, just to flip it. And then you could just animate this kind of thing doing its thing, right? So you just link that to the strength, you view it that way, and there you go. Pops up like that, and then you could also control what it looks like, change the color, stuff like that. I mean, there is more to this effect, actually one more thing just to clean this up. I'm just going to multiply this by 7 so that it's still equally bright, regardless of what value we pick. There's more stuff you could do with this, but generally, that's the way you do this. You could have a graph in the background, whatever. But this is how I mess with the stock market or something like that in Blender. I swear it's not insider trading. It's just trading inside of Blender. And with that, I bid you adieu. Anyways, if you enjoyed this tutorial, great. Hope you learned something. This blend file is going to be available on the Patreon. So is any other blend I've ever done there. But I'm gonna clean this up. Make sure that we have a nice node group and everything. It's going to be available there. Additionally, exclusive tutorials, stuff like this, behind the scenes, early access. If you're interested in any of this, Patreon is the place to get it. So, whatever. There's only 660, 70 some people that thought it was a great idea. Why not you? Either way, you don't need to do it, but if you do, links in the description. And or if you want to, it's in the description. And other than that, that's the stock market. See ya.